Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is currently 5 o'clock Central Time. I hope everyone is having a good day. This is Saturday, the 23rd of March, and we have some really spicy crap today. And when I say spicy, I mean Hispanic spicy. And it's definitely well, it may be high spicy, but it's definitely not American spicy. That's for sure.
Is it
Okay. Oh,
burning?
hold on,
Is it
hold on,
burning
hold
coming
on,
in?
hold on. Shut up. Shut up. Okay. So before we get to everything and everyone's questions, we are going to go through the list and we are going to introduce our hosts. First up, we have our favorite Kanukistani from the Soviet state of Kanukistan, the dirty Frenchy Frenchman Dale. Say hello, Dale.
Good day, everyone. As always, I'm coming to you live from the icy wastes of Montreal. It's good to be here.
And then, of course, we have Luna from the state that doesn't exist, so she must not exist either. Say hello, Luna.
Yep. Hello. Getting into some stuff that's spicy as some bulldog.
And then, of course, we have our resident southern redneck Stoner. Say hello, Stoner.
This is LS420VC reporting in from the swamps of the deep south. How copy? Over.
That's a big 5x5. And then we, of course, have our resident Serbian from the former Soviet state of Serbia. Say hello, Mali.
Hey guys, we're making out of the insane asylum tonight.
Now, I hope everyone enjoyed the music. As always, we have the same song all the time, and I'm sorry that it's so overplayed. However, we are going to get onto the train of what is going on today. We are getting spicy. So anyone that has been a follower of Eric from Iraq Veteran 8888 knows that he used to be married. I guess he kept his divorce fairly quiet because I didn't know jack shit about that. But apparently he's got a new girlfriend, and she's Brazilian.
Ooh la la.
Wait.
What?
What?
Someone said wait.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I said hui.
Oh, wait.
H-U-E.
Yep.
Oh,
That translates better in text.
Fair
Yeah,
enough.
I heard. Yeah, wait. Mordecai
Anyways.
numero uno.
Yes.
anyways, we are kicking off the spicy with this specific post, and everyone should be able to see that on their screen. Eric there said, I met her at the border, and Border Patrol said I could keep her because she kept calling them comunistas.
Nice.
You know, she wasn't wrong, but apparently people are a little bit upset. And someone, in fact, said that she looks like Blair White.
I don't really see the resemblance.
Neither do
I'm
I,
not gonna
except for the big
lie. I
booba.
first thought she was Blair White.
Yeah, I had to correct you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean the big booba and the long hair. Yeah, sure, I can see it. But she is a Brazilian biological woman. She is not Blair White. But see, someone compared her to Blair White, and Eric decided to get a little bit more spicy and said Blair White is also looking good. And he tagged her.
Oof.
Yeah.
Did she respond?
I don't think
I
she
don't think
did.
so. I haven't noticed any responses from her.
Yeah.
Hey, did someone post a picture of Varg up there? Oh no, that's not Varg.
Close enough.
Yeah, I saw the beard Varg. Sadly, no Varg.
I do not know. But, you know, from that comment alone, let's see. One blocked, bunch of people calling him gay. Gay. People saying to get the Luger, obviously. Nazi supporters. Gay. Gay. Wow, it's just everyone calling him gay.
I remember something similar happening when like I had made a video like doing I don't know if you're familiar with the user American Obscenity Bank Switch Actual. Like I had made something like off of his typical like fuck you fascist, and him basically being like hell yeah you love to see it, and all these people in the replies to him being all like hold up, like bro wait, and like posting like the image of like Blair White next to Alex Jones being like don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, come on, them two are an adorable couple.
So, anyways, we had gone over a Twitter Spaces last year that had been run by this guy, 9mm SMG, in which 3 participants actually had a discussion. It was this guy, Brandon Herrera, aka AK Jesus, and Eric from Iraq Veteran 8888. And the only person in that entire space that tried to remain fairly liberty minded was Eric. This 9mm SMG dude and the AK Jesus, they were both fairly fascist in their views, which is hilarious given the fact that Brandon Herrera ran against a Republican incumbent and won on the platform of liberty. I have to wonder if any of the people that voted for him listened to that space.
So it's been a while. Do you remember what the exact topic was of that space?
They went over. It was not too
Wasn't
long
it
after.
wasn't it like gun stores refusing to sell to trans and gay people?
Well,
Yes,
that was the main topic that I had brought up, but there were a few others. And
So was 9mm SMG, was his stance on that like no gun stores should sell to gay, trans, etc.
well,
people,
see,
or was it just that people should be able to, you should be able
this
to choose who you want to sell to and who you don't want to sell to?
this uh this space happened last year after the not after the Nashville shooting. It happened after the the third decision that came down from SCOTUS about a Colorado business that made web pages not wanting
right.
to service gay couples. But everyone last year decided that they were going to they were going to use that decision and make a claim that it was a decision based around freedom of association for businesses, which it wasn't. It was
Right.
it all of the decisions that have come down about these cases are all about special services and artistic services, aka speech.
Right.
You cannot be compelled to speak. But see, making a sale is not speech. And selling a gun is not a special service. Modifications to a firearm, now that's a special service.
Mm-hmm.
But 9mm and Brandon both basically said, gun owners should be able to deny service based on these decisions. But those decisions wouldn't support that claim. And of course, people are, siding with 9mm here, basically calling him gay. And then we move on. Huh?
I was just going to say, I mean, like, let's be objective here. Blair White is objectively attractive as a person.
Yes.
And I would say
Daniel.
if you took any normie who doesn't follow politics, who's not gay, and showed them a picture of her, I'm willing to bet 9 out of 10 people are going to say she's attractive.
9 out of 10 people would say they'd smash,
Yes.
including women.
Yes. So, like, when you've had tens of thousands of dollars of plastic surgery like she has, it's hard to be ugly. Right? She has spent at least, I don't know what, in the realm of somewhere between 5 and 6 figures on a shit ton of plastic surgery. So
it's at least 65,000, if not just north of 100.
Okay. So let's just be objective here. None of those people would be saying that if they didn't know she was trans.
And then we move on to another post from Eric. And this was following the decision that came down from the Second Circuit Court. I think it was the Second Circuit Court, where an Illinois judge ruled that illegal immigrants can carry guns.
Makes sense.
It's a very pro-2A decision, which
Yes.
a lot of people think is a psyop trying to get the right to turn on the Second Amendment, which it's kind of fucking working.
With it being in Chicago, it would be the Seventh Circuit.
Seventh Circuit. Thank you.
Right.
Second is like New York and Vermont, as well as looks like Connecticut.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
Erica, I'm afraid I didn't hear you correctly when you said that last sentence. Can you say again?
Yes, some people believe that it is a psyop to get the right to turn against the Second Amendment. And some are indeed falling victim to that.
which is asinine because you don't need to be a citizen in the U.S. to own a gun. If I flew down to the U.S. I don't, sadly as a Canadian citizen, but as a Canadian citizen, I don't need a visa for 6 months stay in the U.S. as a visitor. If I went down there tomorrow, I could buy a gun. I just couldn't bring it back to Canada with me. You don't have. I could buy and I could carry. There is no citizenship requirement to own guns. So even if you're there illegally, you can own a gun.
There is currently U.S. code saying that if you are not a resident, you cannot purchase a firearm here in the U.S.
But
Sorry,
I would
Dale.
be
No
I
boom
would
booms for you.
I would be a temporary resident. No, do you have
No.
to be a permanent resident?
You have to at least have a visa.
But I think because Canada is special in the regard that you don't need a visa to travel to the U.S. Like, are you
No,
sure it does not
yes,
exempt Canada from that?
Canada is not exempt from that. You still have to have a visa in order to purchase. You have to be not a permanent resident, but a resident for a long period of time.
Sorry,
Can you-
MasterCard users.
Assuming that, say, for example, Molly went to the U.S. with a visitor's visa, which is basically the exact same thing I could do without a visa, could she then purchase a gun?
She would have to
You
come on a
technically have
work
the visa.
she would have to come on a work visa and
Oh.
maintain a residence for a minimum of 6 months.
Gay.
Very.
This rule, this judgment that came out of the Seventh Circuit is not by far complete. I mean, this is only an appeals decision, which means it only applies to this one person in this one case. But it is capable of being used to set precedent in other states and in other circuits. And given the fact that the Seventh Circuit is very anti-2A, it is very, very likely that a pro-2A decision from the Seventh Circuit can be turned into a much broader pro-2A decision in other circuits, like the Fifth.
So, was this a one-judge decision,
Yes.
or was this a panel, or like a
This was
three-judge or an en banc?
this was a single judge decision
All right.
at a U.S. Federal District Appeals Court.
Right.
Judge Sharon Johnson Coleman ruled earlier this month that a federal ban on undocumented immigrants owning firearms is unconstitutional and dismissed charges against Heriberto Carballo Flores, who was arrested in 2020 after violating a federal law that prohibits non-citizens from possessing guns. Here's the thing, though. The fact that the judge followed the Bruin decision to the letter tells me everything that I need to know about this judge. This judge does not play politics. This judge plays precedent.
Do we have access to the judgment? Like, can you pull it up? I'm curious.
Let's see. I need to see if I can find that. Seventh Circuit.
Yeah, unfortunately, non-SCOTUS cases are much more difficult to find rulings on.
Well, this isn't a SCOTUS case, and it is
Right,
not
and
difficult to find judgments for
Okay.
SCOTUS cases.
Right, and that's what I mean. But like SCOTUS cases, or sorry, cases that aren't SCOTUS tend to be a lot more difficult to actually find online than
Yeah.
SCOTUS cases do.
So this appears to be the filing. Background, legal standard discussion. Okay, conclusion. Okay, so this is the judgment. It was filed on the 8th of March. Gives background. The court presumes familiarity with its April 13th, 2022 order denying Flores' first motion to dismiss. As relevant here, on June 1st, 2020, Flores possessed a handgun in the Little Village neighborhood of Chicago, Illinois. Flores contends that he received and used the handgun for self-protection and protection of property. Flores' citizenship status, he was charged in violation of 18 U.S.C. 922 G5, which prohibits any non-citizen who is not legally authorized to be in the United States from possessing in or affecting commerce any firearm or ammunition, or to receive any firearm or ammunition which has been shipped or transported in interstate or foreign commerce.
Right. So it's only prohibited if you have a gun that has been in interstate commerce. So could you, in theory, have a locally manufactured gun?
That is still in motion at the moment. That sort of decision is going to be decided in a Texas suppressor lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not believe that has yet reached the Supreme Court.
Oof. F in chat for undocumented in Ohio. The only options they got is what? High Point?
Let's see. So the legal standard, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 12B. You know what? I need to change this so that people can see this. Okay. That's not. It's not enough. There we go. Okay, so Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 12B1 provides that a party may raise by pretrial motion any defense, objection, or request that the court can determine without a trial on the merits. Rule 12 authorizes defendants to challenge the lawfulness of a prosecution on purely legal as opposed to factual grounds. A court may decide all questions of law raised in a motion to dismiss, including the constitutionality and interpretation of a federal statute. Let's see. Flores asserts that the Third Circuit's recent decision in Range v. Garland and the Seventh Circuit's decision in Atkinson versus Garland signify a change in law warranting dismissal of the indictment. The government argues that Flores' motion for consideration must fail because neither of the two cases upon which Flores relies adversely affects this court's earlier decision to uphold Section 922G5 as constitutional. While this court agrees that Range is not binding on this court, the Seventh Circuit's holding in Atkinson warrants discussion. In Atkinson, the Seventh Circuit clarified the analysis demanded by Bruin's text and history test in consideration whether Section 922G1 is constitutional. As guidance, the Seventh Circuit proposed a set of interrelated and non-exhaustive questions that may help focus the proper analysis. Does this address a general societal problem that has persisted since the 18th century? If the problem existed during a relevant historical period, did earlier generations address it with similar or material different means? What does history tell us about disarming those convicted of crimes generally and of felonies in particular? Among other sources, the parties could look to commentary from the founders, proposals emerging from the state's constitutional ratifying conventions, blah, blah, blah. To answer the question, the parties should consider how the breadth, severity, and the underlying rationale of the historical examples stack up against Section 922G. Are there broader historical analogs during the periods that Bruin emphasized, including but not limited to laws disarming dangerous groups other than felons? If the party's historical inquiry identifies analog laws, do those laws supply enough of a historical tradition as opposed to isolated instances of regulation to support Section 922G1? On this front, the parties should provide details about the enforcement, impact or judicial scrutiny of these laws to the extent possible. If history supports, defendants call for individualized assessment for a distinction between violent and nonviolent felonies. How do we define a nonviolent or non-dangerous felony? And what evidence can a court consider in assessing whether a particular felony conviction was violent? Let's see. In Bruin, the Supreme Court established a framework for analyzing whether a challenged firearm regulation violates the Second Amendment. First, Bruin instructs courts to determine whether the Second Amendment's plain text covers an individual's conduct. If it does, the conduct is presumptively protected, and the government bears the burden of demonstrating that the challenged regulation is consistent with the nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. I just have to give a round of applause to this judge by correctly citing the Bruin decision. It is impeccably cited and correctly quoted. The court previously held that Flores' conduct is covered by the plain text of the Second Amendment. Nothing has occurred that would cause the court to depart from this prior ruling. Although the Second Amendment's plain text presumptively protects firearms possession by undocumented persons, that does not end the analysis. Under Bruin, if the government can show that the felon disposition statute is part of the country's historical tradition of firearm regulation, then the statute survives. Thus, the court will reanalyze the historical tradition with Atkinson's guidance. The government argues individuals who were not members of the political community and individuals who threatened the social order through their untrustworthy adherence to the rule of law. This court recently issued opinions guided by Atkinson on identical Section 922G challenges that discussed the government's position regarding the untrustworthy adherence to the law historical analog. These are the cases that she cites, and she goes on to say, because the government's arguments are identical in this case, this court adopts and incorporates the reasoning of those opinions as to the finding of Section 922G5 as facially constitutional. The court now turns to Flores as applied challenge to Section 922G5's constitutionality. This court found that the British Loyalist example in the untrustworthy adherence to the law historical analog contained an exception allowing British Loyalists to sign loyalty oaths. This exception necessarily requires an individualized assessment to determine if the former British Loyalists is so untrustworthy or dangerous that they should be barred from possessing a weapon. The court also determined that based on the government's historical analog, where exceptions were made that allowed formerly untrustworthy British Loyalists to possess weapons, the individuals who fell within the exception were determined to be nonviolent during their individual assessments, permitting them to carry firearms. That is a hell of a judgment saying, hey, the executive doesn't get to make this decision. It's on the courts. We get the last judgment. We get the say.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but especially that last part sounded really much like it could be used to say that former felons also have their gun rights back. Would you say that?
Bingo!
It's going in that direction.
It's going in that direction, and
Excellent.
We have a case in front of the Supreme Court that will be decided within the next 4 months that will decide whether or not released felons, whether they were violent or not, can carry firearms.
All right.
Okay.
Which
I
means
wonder if that goes through, would it then, like, could it then be taken even further and essentially reinstate their ability to vote?
I don't
uh
think so
I no,
because
listen, here's well there is sorry, I'm trying to breathe here. There is no enumerated right in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights
For voting.
for
Right,
voting.
right.
So their quote unquote right to vote probably would not be restored.
All right. That
Um,
is some promising developments. Hopefully, Clarence Thomas can get over on that case his dislike for felons and continue upholding his correct constitutional views on guns.
I wanna finish this off because this last paragraph of the discussion is a major smackdown to the government. The government argues that Flores is a non-citizen who is unlawfully present in this country. The court notes, however, that Flores has never been convicted of a felony, a violent crime, or a crime involving the use of a weapon. Even in the present case, Flores contends that he received and used the handgun solely for self-protection and protection of property during a time of documented civil unrest in the spring of 2020. Additionally,
So this was during the whole
yeah,
BLM
it was
riots.
during the Summer of Love.
Yes, fiery but mostly peaceful protests, as some news anchors might say.
Additionally, pretrial service has confirmed that Flores has consistently adhered to and fulfilled all of the stipulated conditions of his release, is gainfully employed, and has no new arrests or outstanding warrants. The court finds that Flores' criminal record containing no improper use of a weapon, as well as the nonviolent circumstances of his arrest, do not support a finding that he poses a risk to public safety, such that he cannot be trusted to use a weapon responsibly and should be deprived of his Second Amendment right to bear arms in self-defense. Thus, this court finds that, as applied to Flores, Section 922G5 is unconstitutional. The conclusion: the non-citizen possession statute of 18 USC 922G5 violates the Second Amendment as applied to Flores. Thus, the court grants Flores' motion to dismiss. Which means this motherfucker is on the streets carrying a gun again, and I am happy about it.
Yep. So, something you said earlier, I kind of want to double back to. So, what is going on with that Texas suppressor case? I've not heard about that.
The Texas suppressors,
Yeah.
the made in Texas suppressors,
Oh.
not Hexas, Texas, as in
Right.
the state.
Yeah.
Texas wrote a law that has been on the books and has been challenged by the Attorney General for like a year and a half now, that basically says any suppressor that is made in and remains within Texas is not subject to the Interstate Commerce Clause and therefore is not subject to the regulations of the ATF. Which means anyone that lives within Texas, buys a suppressor within Texas, and keeps a suppressor within Texas can lawfully own a suppressor without having to file a Form 1 with the ATF.
All right.
Or is that a Form 4?
I'm pretty sure it depends on how it's made because of the fact of it would be a different form if you make it yourself as opposed to if you buy it like from the store. Similar with things like an SBR.
Form 1 is used to
is
create an NFA controlled weapon, while Form 4 is used to purchase an NFA controlled item. So it would be Form 4.
Or
Is this
potentially a Form 1 if you for the
If you
various
make it
people
yourself.
that 3D print their own. Yeah.
Yeah.
is this case currently, is it at the SCOTUS level yet, or is it still making its way through the appeals
No,
process?
it's still in the appeals process in the Fifth Circuit.
Is it kind of like, is it just newly in the appeals process,
Oh
or is it
no,
like
no,
how?
it's been in the appeals process, but there's motion after motion of arguments between the DOJ and the state.
Right. So far, what was the last? Has it been initially ruled as unconstitutional, or was it initially like who was at the trial level? Who won the verdict?
Well,
If you know.
there was no trial level
Oh.
because this was a state law that the Fed decided to challenge, which means it immediately goes to the Circuit Court of Appeals. When you're challenging a law without a without a group that would be affected by the law within the state, which the people within the state aren't objecting to the law, and they're not the ones challenging it, it automatically goes to a federal circuit appeals court. Now,
Alright.
if people within the state have standing and they object to the law, then it can go through the Texas courts. But I don't believe that it would go through a jury trial.
Or would it go through a bench trial, like just with a judge, or?
I think it would automatically go to the state appeals court, and then up to the state Supreme Court. And then if someone wasn't happy with the judgment from the state appeals court, then it would go to the circuit appeals court. I don't think any law would ever go to a jury court or like to a trial court. Because there is no supposed violation that a citizen has committed.
Right.
Trial courts are generally left for individuals.
I see. But yeah, then that is definitely it's definitely a thing I want to see up in front of SCOTUS soon. Because while I'm a bit iffy on how the aforementioned Mr. Thomas would rule on the felon case. One thing I know for certain is one of the things Clarence Thomas hates the most is interstate commerce fuckery.
Yes.
As noted by his probably most famous dissent of his career in the case of, what was that case? In the case of Gonzalez versus Wright. Yeah, he does not like people using interstate commerce arguments for things that have never left a single state. So I hope it gets there, and I hope Thomas is on the court when it gets there, and I hope he just fucking kills it.
Now, mind you, this circuit appeals court judge, the one that made the judgment on the Flores case, she is an Obama appointee.
Interesting.
So, the simple fact that she is abiding by precedent and not abiding by politics, like I said, I love that. And
Yes, that's
here's
Says
where
something
things
about her.
here's where things get really fud-y, fud-ish, fuckery.
buttery is
Um,
afoot.
Buttery.
Yes, futtery and fuckery is afoot. People have been losing their minds ever since this judgment came down. Someone put up a poll that got a little over 4,500 votes saying, does the Second Amendment apply to illegals? 17.7% of us said yes, and
I voted
82.3%
on
of
that.
us said no.
Do
But
we
see-
know who this risky is?
Risky
Um,
Krisky?
Yeah, is he a rando or do we know who he is?
He is random to me, but it looks like he walks in the same vein as, what's his name?
Herrera?
No. He walks in the same vein as Toe and Naga and Lilith.
Which Lilith?
Lilith Carson.
I don't think I know that.
She is a trans libertarian or adjacent
Her na-
nerdy libertarian.
Yeah. Her name is Lilith, so I just automatically assumed she was trans.
It's just one of those names that the joke of where it's like that, and I didn't realize when choosing the name on Twitter, Luna.
Oh yes. Well, there's that famous meme I saw where it's like, if you're such an ally, name 50 trans people. And then the next panel just said Lilith.
I'm
That was
sorry, but I
accurate
don't know
about
50 trans people. I only know my friends and the one I'm dating and I'm madly in love with.
that. You see that was accurate about 6 months ago, but there has been such an explosion of different names in the Twitterverse of trans people. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I'm
Lilith-
pretty sure people know. People on Twitter know my real name, so they know that that it's not one of those generic names.
Yes, I know your name.
I don't want to know your name. No offense. That's just less information I know and can give up under torture.
Fair point.
Yeah,
Deniable plausibility.
Stoner, why didn't you tell me you had weakness in your bloodline?
Oof.
I like to plan for everything.
So, given the
So what I'm
over-
hearing is under waterboard you would give up information.
I'm sorry, but I have an intense fear of water. I nearly drowned once when I was a kid.
Suck it up.
Sounds like my
But
mom.
don't literally, because then you might drown.
Okay, so back on the topic. People are losing their shit, and the number of FUDs that had to have come out of this, like, I will do the math right now. For 82.3% of 4,639 votes, to get 82.3%. Let's see, 46.39 times 0.823.
What's the number of votes?
4,639. So the number of people that would have voted no is 3,817.
0.897.
18. Yeah. Round up.
Yeah. No, a 0.8 person, a 0.8th of a person voted.
8/10 of a person voted one way, and then the other, well, actually, it's more like
Point
9/10 of a person voted one way, and then the other tenth of that person voted the other way.
yeah, like that last moment of like, well,
Hold on.
Mhm.
Did
Sorry?
okay? So I can hear everyone. Did Luna cut out for a second?
I think she did.
Yeah.
did I?
Can you? Oh, yeah.
Okay. All I heard was half of a well, and then it cut
Yeah,
out.
that's all I gave.
Okay.
Oh.
I
Okay.
was
I just
well,
wanted to make sure.
yeah, no.
Okay. So there's a lot of futtery in that, given that 82.3% of people now currently think that government gave us our rights.
Yep.
Because in order for you to presume that illegals don't have a Second Amendment right, you have to presume that rights aren't God given.
Mhm.
Or if you don't believe in a deity, naturally inherent to life, given the fact that the universe is trying to kill us. It is an inherent law of thermodynamics that the universe will expand and will contract, and it will always be trying to kill all living things that are contained within it.
No, time itself is trying to kill us with the atrophy of decay.
That is part of the universe.
You know there's a way around that decay, don't you?
Time travel?
Uh, I
No.
was gonna say, Walt Disney freeze myself.
No. Let me ask you
But
another
that's
thing.
a conspiracy theory.
Let me ask you another thing. Maybe some people will get what I'm getting at. Is there anything you wish for? Um,
Now, are you trying to turn me into like a magical girl or something?
all right, you got it. You got it.
Mm.
All right. I was thinking I had to pull up the. I was thinking I had to get the emoji just to drive the point home, but
You're trying to make me sell my soul to an adorable little evil.
it's to prevent entropy. Let's save the universe.
See, but
just don't lose that gem.
that's just an energy exchange, and whenever energy is exchanged or transformed, there is always a loss.
Which is why you need the anguished, tortured emotions of preteen girls in order to fix that loss. In order to
And make them fight previous anguish,
Yeah.
tortured.
Second rule
Exactly.
of thermodynamics, there is always a loss. You cannot have negative entropy.
Is this a Lost reference?
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Is this Lost?
No. Okay, I'm hearing someone. Oh, that's
Yeah.
Stoner. Okay. So thanks to the shit that's going on in Chicago, and thanks to the judge, Chicago being upset that they can't enforce laws against illegals, are now going after an Austrian company called Glock.
Oof. Cock.
I didn't know Glock was. I didn't know
Glock,
was
not
Austrian.
cock. Yes,
Close
Glock
enough.
is Austrian.
Yeah.
Then who's cock?
No one's cock.
No, it is. There's
Molly.
Coke, Heckler and Koch.
Molly, save the horniness for later.
Yeah, this is a family podcast, Molly.
Yeah.
No,
Was.
family podcast my ass, but we are not talking about dicks right now, okay? So
Sorry to anyone named Richard.
Yes. Yes. Sorry to anyone named Richard. So Chicago is suing Glock, saying its guns are too easy to convert to illegal automatic weapons. It's the latest example of democratic jurisdictions pressuring gun makers to change products and marketing. Listen, Glock doesn't market these weapons as automatic. Glock doesn't market these weapons as easily convertible to automatic. So
in order to convert it to fully automatic, you actually have to work on the frame. Like you have to like destroy part of the frame in order to make the thing that makes it go fun.
on
like,
Gen
fit into it.
5s, yeah, you do.
And can't you just make any gun automatic with just like a simple spring?
No.
I
I
See,
was thinking of a
these
Sten gun.
these firearms have what are called trigger disconnects, in which when the slide cycles rearward, it disconnects the action of the spring that is connected to the striker from the trigger, and only once the trigger is released can the sear that is connected to the trigger re-engage the sear that is on on the striker.
That's unfortunate.
You have to overcome the trigger disconnect, which is what these sear devices do. They overcome the trigger disconnect. This week, the city of Chicago filed a lawsuit against Glock, the firearms manufacturer. The lawsuit accuses the company of making handguns that are too easy to convert into illegal automatic weapons. It's an unusual lawsuit, and here to tell us more about it is NPR law enforcement correspondent Martin Cast. Hey, Martin.
Yes, we know
Hey.
they won't be biased.
I actually watched Guns and Gear about this, and he read through the lawsuit. The lawsuit's a bunch of bunk. And it reminded me of an old saying in the legal field. You can sue a ham sandwich if you want.
Makes sense.
That's all this lawsuit is. It's someone suing a ham sandwich. It's not going to go anywhere if they get an unbiased judge.
Yeah.
Right. But that being that it's Chicago, I mean,
Being that it's
The chance
Chicago,
of them
take a look at
getting an
that federal appeals judge.
But I made a I made a comparison before with something similar to this, where it's like with someone saying like, oh, they need to go after the gun manufacturers with like mass shootings or things like that. It would be like it'd be like essentially like suing Jack Daniels because someone had too much to drink at a bar, chose to hit someone, and then get in their vehicle and start driving drunk.
Yeah, so here
God damn
here's
you. Jack
the
Daniels.
law enforcement special person that is being interviewed says the interviewer says, is Chicago's lawsuit part of some new strategy against the gun industry? And the expert
not a
says
new strategy.
it seems to be. The background here is that the gun makers are protected by a federal law passed in 2005 that shields them from lawsuits, but it's not an absolute protection. Not all lawsuits. There are some loopholes for things like, for example, when a gun is considered a nuisance. That's something this Chicago lawsuit claims about the easy-to-convert Glocks. But see, a nuisance in the law requires that there be a defect that is known by Glock, and Glock hasn't changed it. A safety defect.
It'd be
There
like
is no
if they
safety
didn't do a
defect.
recall.
Yeah. It's for gun makers that know that there is a safety issue that don't do a recall. There is no safety issue with Glocks. These things have been solid since the 80s. The only thing that makes a Glock unsafe is filing down the sear to lighten the trigger pull weight.
Do people do that?
Oh yeah, some people do that. You can find triggers online that have claimed 3-pound trigger weights. And
What's a
Johnny,
normal trigger weight for a Glock?
a Glock is supposed to be anywhere from 6 to 8 pounds, but I've seen Glock triggers on poorly, like brand new Glocks, have a trigger pull weight of upwards, maybe even into 14 pounds. That's a heavy fucking trigger pull.
So that means 14 pounds of force would be required to
Pull the
shoot.
trigger. Yeah, to overcome the sear on the striker.
What is would you say is the average like handgun trigger pull force required?
Between 4 to 8 pounds. When it comes to striker fired, we're talking right around that 6-pound zone, and when it comes to hammer fired weapons like 1911, 2011, we're talking in that 3 to 4 pound zone.
Yeah. So, for example, I'm looking at the website for the Stealth Arms platypus right now. Their standard trigger weight is 4 pounds. They do also offer one in about 3 to 3.5 pounds. And then as a competition only trigger, it is between 2.5 to 3 pounds.
That's on the single action.
Yes, that is on the 1911 or 2011 platypus, which is a hammer fired.
Well, we're talking about the single action part of the trigger pull, because hammer fired weapons can be either single
or
action
double.
or single double. Meaning if
It
you
doesn't
have already
specify
if you've already pulled the hammer back,
it is going to be lighter.
It's going to be lighter. But if you have the hammer resting against the slide, you're going to have more weight to overcome in order to have the hammer pull back with the trigger pull and then release the sear to drop the hammer back against the slide to strike the firing pin.
Very similarly how it works with even like a revolver, with that if the hammer is back, it is going to be a lighter trigger pull than if the hammer is flat.
Yes.
Right. Speaking of that, is it true that in general revolvers have a heavier trigger pull than
Yep.
Actually, just what is there a term for non-revolver handguns?
Pistol.
Oh, sure. So yeah, is it true that revolvers tend to have a heavier trigger pull than pistols?
Auto loading. Yeah.
It depends if it's a single action or a double action.
How about for a single action?
Single action, once you pull the hammer back, it can be a pretty light trigger pull. It depends on how it's set up.
How about for double action?
They can be a little heavy.
It'll probably be around 8 pounds. Most standard double single revolvers hit that 4-pound single action trigger pull and 8-pound double action trigger pull.
In general, are there any bad things about having lighter trigger pulls, or do you
there are some legal arguments saying that lighter trigger means that you were ready to kill. It's premeditated if you do get into a scenario where you have to pull the trigger and someone dies.
BuzzFeed or a buzzword that they loved using for a while was
Hair
hair
trigger.
trigger.
Yep. I even heard my grandpa talk about hair trigger pistols and rifles.
But for the actual function, like assuming the legal nonsense, disregarding that, are there any like functional reasons for not having a lighter trigger pull, or
Yes and no. When you're amped up on adrenaline, you lose certain fine motor function. So, in a self-defense situation, if you have a lighter trigger, if you don't have to pull that trigger, you may not have the choice. Your fine motor function may pull that trigger anyways. Whereas if you have a heavier trigger pull, there's more weight that your trigger finger will have to overcome. And even though you have less fine motor function at the time, you will be able to feel that, your finger is on the trigger and you're sitting right at that sear surface and not pull the trigger. There are some very active things that have to go on in your brain in order to pull that trigger while you're on adrenaline.
So when pulling a trigger, like especially a heavier trigger, you can generally kind of feel where the it's coming. Like you can feel it coming against the sear.
Yeah. What is going on, Stoner?
Hold on, let me check on Z. Let me make sure she's okay.
Okay.
What is going on?
Oh, we do not know. Oh, God. God damn it.
What?
I'm just now looking
figured
at,
out what's
at
going
the
on with
chat.
Z. It's her shoulder. Her shoulder's hurting her.
Okay. I just saw what Stoner posted in the chat.
We're not doing anything naughty, I promise. We don't do that crap on YouTube.
All right, so what you'd say.
Sounded
That's the exact
weird.
thing you would say if you were doing it.
Yeah,
Vicious.
caught
Sorry,
red-handed.
What were you saying, Erica?
I was just saying I just saw what Z posted in the chat.
Yeah,
Very nice.
we're totally not doing anything naughty.
God damn it.
I wonder if I can find the filing. Chicago suit filing Glock. Let's see, city
Does
of
this
mayor.
seem like something that's just going to be motion to dismissed away?
Possibly. Okay, so here's the filing. That one was filed on Tuesday. Let's see. 100 years ago, the Thompson submachine gun, also known as the Tommy gun, was the go-to weapon for Chicago criminals. Prohibition-era violence with the gun was so prevalent, in fact, that the weapon was commonly referred to as the Chicago typewriter. And if anyone hasn't seen The Untouchables, you should watch it.
The fact that at the time the Thompson submachine gun cost $200, and the ATF has gone on record and said that the reason that the $200 NFA tax stamp is because it was like it matched the price of that, and essentially causing people to have to pay twice the cost. And literally, quote, they were like, "We realized that it made it basically unattainable, and that was the point."
Fuck the ATF.
Yeah, well, those idiots didn't take inflation into account.
Yeah. At least the inflation fucked them as well, as it did fuck
No, but
us.
the fact of the matter being them like going them outright saying yes, we set up this this basically like this tax stamp requirement in order to get it because at the time like its purpose was to make it inaccessible to people, like to take a right and make it inaccessible.
Yep.
So
Bullshit.
they bring up prohibition era violence, and I brought up the Untouchables and the inevitable quote that will be quoted from one of the greatest actors, Sean Connery. Can anyone guess it?
I have not seen the movie, but does it contain the
The only
letter?
movie I know Sean Connery from is The Hunt for Red October.
Right. You don't know the original James Bond?
Oh yeah, and that too. I'm talking about movies I actually watched.
Okay, so
Fair
You haven't
enough.
seen League
So
of
his-
Extraordinary Gentlemen?
so his
Oh
his,
yeah, that too. I forgot about that
his-
movie.
his famous quote in The Untouchables is, "They put one of yours in the morgue, you put one of theirs." No, it's they put one of yours in the hospital, you put one of theirs in the morgue.
Sounds like good life advice.
Yeah. Also, Stoner, you've never seen the original James Bond movies?
What the fuck?
And didn't really pique my interest. Now, The Hunt for Red Dawn, I only got one word to say about that. Submarines.
Hunt for Red October, not Red Dawn.
The
Those
Hunt
are two
for
different
Red
movies.
Dawn.
I'm sorry, I'm drunk and I'm playing Cyberpunk
The Hunt
while
for Red
listening to
Dawn.
y'all.
Understandable.
Yes.
Sonar pings that are just Wolverines.
Ramius was one of the greatest
Hold on,
submarine.
we're picking something up on the
commanders.
sonar. Wolverines.
Fucking Christ.
I swear to God, when, not if, when the real Red Dawn happens, my group will be named the Wolverines.
So it basically says here that between 2017 and 2021, over 8,000 Glock pistols were recovered in connection with criminal investigations in Chicago. And then in and then over the past 2 years, from the beginning of 2021 through December 31st, 2023, over 1,100 modified Glocks have been recovered by the Chicago Police Department. Note, they don't mention exactly what those modifications are. They're trying to conflate these auto sears with any other modification to a Glock. And I've done just about everything you can do to that Glock 43X that I've got, except for lightening the trigger weight. I've put on a red dot sight. I've changed out the trigger from that serrated shit trigger that Glock puts on to a flat face trigger. I've changed out the slide. I've changed out the barrel. I've bought a compensator. I have a lighter recoil spring. I have aftermarket magazines that carry 15 rounds. I've done just about everything you can do to this firearm.
To the 43X.
Yeah. Which is why it cost me with the cost of the pistol when I originally bought it, about $2,800 in total. Let's
I hear
see.
background noise.
Due to the susceptibility of Glock pistols to modification and Glock's refusal to correct the problem. Modification of Glock's pistols is not a problem.
Nope.
Anyone with $20 to $25 to spare and a desire to circumvent long-standing federal and state prohibitions on possessing fully automatic machine guns can do so by buying an auto sear and affixing it to a Glock pistol. Hey, guess what? The NFA is unconstitutional. As soon as what's his face that got locked up for the auto key card gets his case to the Supreme Court, the NFA is gone.
What is the auto key card?
So there are two guys that went to jail in Florida. One of them is a Minnesota resident. He ran a YouTube channel, and his wife is currently running the YouTube channel, where he would advertise a product called the auto key card. It is a piece of metal about the size of a credit card, in which etched into the metal of the card is the shape of an auto sear for an AR-15. But
Laser
in order,
etched in there.
it's etched.
Yeah.
So
And
because
And on top
because
of
of because of this card, him and the person that made it were arrested, and the they basically said that he was in possession of automatic firearms, because if it was
and distributing.
because they said he was in possession of an auto sear. But in order for it to be an auto sear, you have to cut it out and you have to form it correctly. They tried doing this 4 times with 4 different cards, with 4 different AR-15s, and they got it to fire once on one AR-15, and then
And
it
on top of
died.
that, it took almost like an hour just simply trying to cut it out in order to use it.
And they argued the same thing that 3D printers have argued, that it is speech, that it is not an auto sear, but the trial court was not buying the argument, and I thought that was bullshit. But if we can get his case up to the Supreme Court, the NFA is gone, because even ruling on the idea that it is an auto sear, that would implicate the NFA, and the NFA is fucked.
Good.
So would the GCA. The GCA would definitely be fucked.
Also good.
Let's go. I can put a 14.5 on my AR without needing it to be pinned and welded. I can put a fucking suppressor on there. Let's do this.
Here,
Third
I tell you
tenet.
what. You get a 9mm AR and put on a 4-inch barrel with a folding stock.
What if I want to go bougie and do a 5.7 AR and spend like 5 times the amount of the gun on just a box of ammo?
If you're gonna go 5.7, you might as well buy the P90.
Yeah. Why doesn't anybody domestically produce 5.7 millimeter ammo like they do the others?
I think Fiatchi actually makes 5.7.
They do. Fianchi makes
But
5.7.
why is it so expensive?
Or
What, Dale?
Fiatchi, Fiocchi, whatever.
I was gonna say, is 5.7 a bigger round or a smaller round than 9mm?
5.7
It's
is an
not.
intermediate. It's an intermediary round that was supposed to be able to traverse both pistol and rifle. Um,
Hmm.
the the company that was first tasked with this was FN, and FN produced the P90 with the horizontal mags where it would drop around and rotate it into the chamber.
Hmm.
And then they were supposed to come up with a pistol, and they did. And now PSA has come out with a pistol that does 5.7.
I'm hoping because of the PSA gun that more brands are going to start making it, and it's going to drastically drop the price of 5.7.
The only thing that will drop the price of 5.7 is FN losing its what is it?
It's copyright on it. Or
No,
like,
not copyright. It's
Patent.
patent on
Yeah.
the P90.
On the
Also, so my understanding was that 9mm is a handgun cartridge. I'm curious, why would you put 9mm in an AR?
Because 9mm is the quintessential of 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s personal defense round.
Hmm.
You're
the
not
MP, like the
when-
MP5.
when it comes to stopping power between any other cartridge that's produced by any company, they all operate within quote unquote FBI specs, penetrating 13 inches into a block of ballistics gel, which means they have pretty much all the same penetrating power.
Hmm.
So why not produce nothing but 9mm? Why not put it into use through a plethora of firearms like an AR and a pistol so that you can have interchangeable magazines that all use the exact same round, and now you have a combat loadout with a rifle that takes 9mm. You've got a pistol that takes 9mm, and they both take the same fucking magazines.
Right.
Isn't it kind
That
of
makes
a similar process of thinking along with like the M249 with it taking both 5.56 and like AR mags? With the sense that like everyone can just carry 5.56.
Those were rejected. When FN designed those, they were boasted, but none of them came into the U.S. military. The 249 Golf is only belt fed.
And the 249 Golf, what is that?
The SAW, the squad automated weapon. It is the
Right.
it is the quintessential automatic firearm for any fire team.
Right.
It is the suppressive firearm for any fire team. We've talked about squad tactics before.
Yeah.
Generally, in a squad, there are 4 people, or a fire team, there are 4 people. And while 3 people with M16s or M4s are up and moving, you have an automatic weapon, aka the 249, aka the SAW, laying down suppressive fire. And then when those 3 people in the fire team drop, they start laying down suppressive fire to allow the gunner or the person carrying the saw to move and gain ground ahead of them, and then they trade off.
Right.
So this
That makes
this
sense.
is the Glock Autoseer, and just because it's got the logo doesn't mean it's produced by Glock. But you can see that little button on the side. That is the switch. And it's sticking out the other side. You can switch it back and forth for semi-auto and automatic.
Very
Let's
useful.
see. So, in the claims of the lawsuit, number 6, indeed a stark contrast to Glock pistols, the process of modifying most other popular pistols into machine guns, such as those produced by Smith & Wesson or Sig Sauer, requires time-consuming and difficult engineering well beyond the capability of most civilians. Listen, I could design an autoseer for any auto-loading pistol right now. I could 3D print it and have it functioning tomorrow if I still had my 3D printer. But the fact of the matter is, it's not the fact that it's time consuming. It's the fact that people are producing them and people are buying them. If there was more demand for autoseers for Sig Sauer or Smith & Wesson, they'd be produced and people would buy them. And then Sig Sauer and Smith & Wesson would actually come into the market, into the black market in Chicago. The only reason people are producing them for Glock pistols is because they are the most abundant auto-loading pistol in the U.S. You've seen one Glock, you've seen them all. They're all the exact same
That's
fucking
why I
thing.
don't like them.
My Glock 43X is basically a slimmed down version of the Glock 19. Well, it's more of a slimmed down version of the Glock 45. It's a miniaturized version of the Glock 45, which is not 45 ACP, it's 9mm.
What is bigger out of 45 ACP and 9 mil?
45 ACP is a bigger round.
Yeah, 45 AC. That's what around like 11 millimeter, I think, like in millimeter diameters.
I see.
10mm.
Oh, it's
10?
10 mil.
No, that's 40. Because I know, like 40 Smith and Wesson and 10 mil. The only difference between those two is the length of the case.
It's the difference in cartridge. But between 40 Smith and Wesson, 45 ACP, between 40
in 10 mil.
40, 10 mil, and 45 ACP, they're the same round, different cartridge.
Which of the three has more explosive in it?
Arguably the 45.
So that's going to be the one that has the most power.
Yeah, see, what was it, the 38 Smith & Wesson? Or 380 Smith & God damn it, I can't remember this cartridge type. There was a cartridge developed that was basically supposed to be an intermediate between .45, and 10 millimeter, or some other cartridge. And because of it, 10 mil was developed for the FBI. And their agents were incredibly inaccurate with it, and they fucking lost their shit, and so they transitioned back to 9 millimeter.
Classic FBI.
Are you thinking maybe 45 gap?
I don't know. Because 9 millimeter is basically a 22 caliber. Half of these cartridges that you're running, like 380 ACP, 9 millimeter, 22 long rifle, they're all 22 caliber. They just have different cartridges.
So while we're on the topic, how exactly is caliber measured? Like, what is caliber exactly?
You're getting into shit that I forgot long ago.
Fair enough.
I generally prefer measurements in cartridge and projectile size.
So cartridge size is the amount of explosive, and projectile size is the size of the actual bullet, correct? Or the
Diameter and weight.
Oh, all right. Diameter and weight.
I actually think that's what caliber is the combination of caliber and weight. Or
Good to know.
the combination of diameter and weight.
All right. And actually, so while we're on the topic of handguns, there's a thing I wanted to ask. Are any of you familiar with the gun company called Staccato?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Why are their guns so expensive, and are they worth it?
Because they are
Because they're
highly premium.
yeah, they're just expensive.
Are they worth it, or is this just like a brand thing where they're
It's a brand thing.
It's because they were kind of like the first ones to do the double stack 9mm 2011. That's kind of their thing.
Well, they actually have a copyright on the name 2011. No one else gets to use that name.
But
So-
in the end, it experiences the same like malfunctions and everything like that that regular 1911s experience.
So
Yes,
this is the one that I would generally look into getting. The Staccato CS. It is a double stack. It is a 2011. They have 16 round magazines. It is hammer fired. I believe it has a bullnose barrel. Yep.
Yeah. Where it's flush.
They've done the bullnose on the barrel. It looks like the chamber is fluted. The slide is milled for an optic. Obviously, you have a manual safety and you have a grip safety. It wasn't until recently that I started wanting a 1911 style hammer fired weapon, but what I really, really want is a Sig Sauer P226.
What does bull-nosed mean when it comes to barrels?
A bull-nosed barrel is one in which the barrel comes flush with the slide, and the inside of the barrel is actually recessed behind the tip.
And
So-
what's the benefit of that?
The benefit, well, there is no actual benefit. It's just a style thing.
Ah.
So this is the Sig Sauer P226 Legion. Now the Sig P226 is the Navy SEAL firearm. It has been known as the Navy SEAL firearm since the 80s. When everyone else went with Beretta, the SEALs went with Sig Sauer. And the reason why I want the 226 over a 1911 or a 2011 is it doesn't have a fucking grip safety. It's still hammer fired. It still has a manual safety. But there is no grip safety.
Is a grip safety just a safety on the grip, or is there a difference between that and a normal manual safety?
It's just a safety on the grip. Now, what the reason why it's there is because there were some soldiers back in the early 20th century that did some stupid shit, didn't know how to handle their 1911s, and so manufacturers, Colt, were basically asked, hey, can you put more safeties on it? So eventually you get the final 1911 product that the armed forces used for a long period of time, which had 3 different safeties. It had the manual safety, it had the grip safety, and then it had a hammer release, which was a third lever on the firearm that would actually put up a shield, drop the hammer, and then let the shield back down so that you didn't have to carry the weapon cocked and locked. And so at that point, pretty much every first shot that came out of a 1911 was double action. You pulled the trigger, the hammer would pull back, and then once you defeated the seer, the hammer would release, striking the firing pin and igniting or crushing the capsule that holds the gel that ignites the powder in the cartridge. Regardless, the 226 is just a wonderful feat of Austrian technology. I love the 226. But of course, the only SIG I have is the one that everyone says explodes. It doesn't explode. People just suck at keeping up maintenance on their firearms.
I'm sure you've seen that picture of me that I took like a few years ago, where I'm like I've got 360 like a 320 tucked in my sweatpants. I'm holding a shotgun in one hand. I have like 2 dildos in the other.
No, I haven't seen that picture, but that would be quite entertaining.
Wait, okay, let me try to find a tweet with that, because yeah, it's where is one? Here's one. Be like, there we go. It's one of the dumbest things. Also, back when I had short hair.
Let's see. I know I've got a picture of my 320 here somewhere. There it is. Let me save that. And let's see. Pictures. And I'll put it up on the screen for the viewers here shortly. There it is. I'll put it in the chat too.
Nice.
That is my P320. Now, I bought an aftermarket grip module. When I bought it, it originally had this grip module, which sucked. Way too big for my hands. I got small hands. But I like this grip a lot better. And like I said before, it's not a problem with exploding. It's a problem with maintenance. People are not maintaining their firearms.
So, are other like other handguns equally as susceptible to this issue, or is it only a is it only an issue with people not maintaining that specific gun?
It is only an issue with people not maintaining this specific gun. When the problem is the fact that there is a modularity with this firearm. The P320 has what is called a fire control unit. P320 FCU. So the fire control unit is completely independent. This is the firearm. By all definitions that the federal government uses, this is the firearm. Not the frame,
Right.
not the slide, the fire control unit, because the trigger is contained within this. Now, this is a drop-in part. You can drop it into any of the frames that
Okay, I was
fit the
actually curious
P320.
about. I was curious about that because one of a local gun shop, they have just P320 frames like out with like the mags and stuff like that. So, and I was wondering how that was,
Yeah.
if it like it had to have like a serial number on the frame and all like that.
Once we're off the air, I'll pull out my fire control unit so you can see.
Right. So most handguns don't have don't have a separate fire control unit in them.
No. Most auto-loading semi-automatic pistols do not have a modular trigger group. It is all contained in the frame. So the frame is normally the serialized part. But in the P320 and the P365, you have a separate fire control unit. But the reason why the P320 is susceptible to this issue is specifically because of the weight and the bore axis. As the slide cycles backwards, there is a lot of weight in the slide, and it causes the parts of the fire control unit, like this, to actually strike backwards on that polymer frame. And after consistent hitting of a metal part against a plastic part, eventually shit is going to break. That's why the modules are so abundant. They're still somewhat expensive if you buy them from the manufacturer. But guess what? We can 3D print them.
Hmm.
You don't have to buy the grip module. You can 3D print your own. And hey, guess what? At that point, a 3D printed grip module is less than $1.
Hmm.
All you have to do is move the fire control unit into the grip module.
Oh.
Someone sounds tired.
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
Oh yeah, it is. It is like what 1:43 a.m. over there in Serbia.
12.
Yeah,
Oh,
12:43. 6 hours ahead of me.
Erica, I can actually even take you one further. Someone had dropped files for like a CNC machine to mill the slide for the M17.
A CNC machine.
Yeah,
What is that?
they
I'm
probably
assuming
dropped it
it's
for the
not what
Ghost
I
Gunner.
think it is. Um.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. I just have no idea what was being said. There was like 5 different voices practically.
Sorry. I was just wondering, what is a CNC machine? Is that acronym? The way I know of it probably doesn't relate to what the purpose of the. At least I
No,
hope does not. Relate to the purpose of the machine.
it is not related to kink. It is a computer
Fair enough.
numerical control.
Oh.
It is a milling. It is
Oh, it's a mill.
it is computer code for milling metal.
Ah.
Mhm.
Or milling wood. It's actually also known as a CNC lathe.
Oh, so it's a lathe. Alright, good to know.
But as I was saying, those files that dropped were probably dropped for the Ghost Gunner 3.
Possibly. Not 100% sure. I just remember grabbing it like, ooh, I can't make these, but
What I need is the files for the fire control unit. Because then I can mill my own.
I've not found anything like that.
Well, it honestly wouldn't be hard to design a fire control unit in some sort of CAD software. You just have to
My
have the
rec-
right measurements.
My recommendation is to check thegatalog.com.
They don't have them.
No, there's
don't?
nothing like that on there. No.
No.
And
The
my
P320
recommendation is also to everyone listening here to go to thegatalog.com.
the P320 has so much stigma around it because first it was the drop safe issue, then it was the guns exploding because of poor quality. It's not poor quality, it's poor maintenance. But I mean, if it was poor quality, the P365 would have the same issue. The P365 has a fire control unit.
So what act of maintenance should people do in order to make their P320 not explode?
Well, with any plastic, you're going to see the same issues. You're going to see stress points, and those stress points are going to come in areas of lighter coloring. You'll start to see stress fractures. So, on any polymer frame, you're going to see white spots or lighter colored spots in contrast to the rest of the frame. And
So
you're going to
so what I'm
see
hearing
them.
is
them stemming from the contact points that the fire control unit makes with the with the frame.
So
So
what I'm
is the
hearing
maintenance generally just get a new frame when you start seeing those?
Get a new frame, print a new frame. Yeah.
All right.
Luna?
I was just gonna make it. So what I'm hearing is get a frame that is in entirely white and just mag dump it, run it like it's a game of roulette.
You want me to
Is it not
smack you, don't
possible?
you?
Is it not possible? Like, couldn't you fix that by just getting a metal frame?
Yeah, but then you run into the reason why people moved to polymer frames in the first place. They're lighter. You don't want to be carrying around a heavy fucking gun all the goddamn time. That I mean, I already have issues with my pants trying to fall off, even with a belt, and I only carry a P43X, or not a P43X, a Glock
A
43X.
P43X?
Listen, I wish it was a P43X. I wish I could put a fire control unit in a Glock.
I'll take a 365 that can take 15 rounds.
They already make those.
Really?
Yeah,
I haven't seen.
P365X macro.
I thought that only took 12.
No, the X macro takes either a 16 or a 17 round mag. .365X macro.
17 round mag. Hot damn.
Yeah, it's about the same size as my 43X.
Oh. Well,
Granted,
I sit corrected.
Granted, it's gonna be expensive as all get out to buy. Yes. Yeah, so $819.99.
Not bad. What would you say the average handgun sets you back in terms of price?
Well, since the pandemic, $600, 600 to 650.
How about pre-COVID inflation? How much would you say it would be?
4 to 450.
Not too bad. I bought my first handgun literally mid all that.
I bought my first I bought the 43X in 2019 and I got it for $450. That was
Shit.
with when all was said and done, when I walked out the door with a leather inside the waistband holster and ammunition, I spent about $500.
But also, it wasn't like 5.56 less than greatly less than 50 cents a round.
Yeah, it was less than 10 cents a round.
Oh Jesus Christ! Take me back.
What is it? What is it now?
About $1 a round.
Really?
Yep.
Dollar a round. God damn.
In case, unless you buy it on sale, in which case, depending on the store, it can be as low as 50 cents a round. Like I've, depending on the place, I've bought like a pack of 20 for $10.
Where? How much would you say 9mm is now per round?
Actually, it's been decently consistent from what I've seen. Usually about a box of 50 for $20.
Is 9mm usually the most economically efficient round to buy?
No. Unless you're talking stopping power. If you're talking self-defense rounds, a jacketed hollow point is a jacketed hollow point 9mm is going to be the most economical. If you're talking training rounds, 22 LR.
Oh god, yeah. You could spend like $10 and get like, you could spend like $20 and get like 400 rounds.
Is 22 LR? Why would 22 LR not be a good self-defense round?
Because it's tiny and underpowered.
Ew,
No.
it's very.
It is what we call the plinking round. It's, I mean, you can still kill people with it.
I mean,
but it's not going.
22 long has the most. It like causes the most deaths.
Right.
But when it comes to stopping power and self-defense, shooting center mass, it's really not going to stop anyone.
Is it? So it's going to be an under-penetration issue? It's not going to go deep enough?
No, it'll penetrate. It'll penetrate to depth, but it's not going to cause the same cavitation that something like a 5.56 or a 9mm or a 45 is going to cause.
And that's generally where the stopping power comes from most rounds. It's the cavitation.
Yeah, it's the cavitation. The cavitation from a 5.56, even though it's full metal jacket, the cavitation comes from the speed. Whereas with a 9mm, the cavitation comes from the expansion.
All right.
22's really not going to expand.
7 and 6 has entered the chat.
Unless you are loading your own 22 LR and designing your own fucking bullet molds. But then you have to worry about not jacketing a bullet and dealing with lead fouling in your barrel.
What is lead fouling?
So the reason why we started jacketing bullets is because lead is a very soft metal. Right. And when you fire off a cartridge, the bullet is actually slightly bigger than the diameter of the barrel. What happens is you've created so much pressure in the chamber that it's pushing this bullet that's bigger than the barrel through the barrel. And the barrel has what are called lands and grooves. There are these little channels in which parts of the bullet remain intact or don't actually get squished down as much. And that's what causes the barrel to spin, is those lands and grooves in that rifling hexagonal pattern. And when you put lead through that, it actually leaves behind lead particulate. But when you put something like copper, so a copper jacketed hollow point through that barrel, you're not going to get that fouling. Even though copper is a soft metal, it's harder than lead. So it's not going to leave behind nearly as much fouling as lead will.
Were there issues with like pure lead bullets eventually, like if you're shooting them enough, filling in the grooves?
Yes.
That particular.
At which point you're going to start having to worry about squibs.
What are squibs?
Squibs are either rounds that could fire off but haven't fired off yet, or rounds that have fired off that haven't exited the barrel.
What happens then? Does that just like destroy the barrel?
If you get a squib that has fired off but did not exit the barrel, there are a few things that could have happened. You may have even overpressurized your chamber and blown it out. But the biggest problem with a squib load at that point is getting it
Not
out
catching
and
it.
defouling the barrel.
I was gonna
If
say not catching it and proceeding to fire another round.
yeah, well, like I said,
maybe
don't.
the other round will push it out.
No, 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 no. Don't
Oh,
ever.
dude. Uh-uh.
You need if you get a squib that has fired and has gotten stuck in the barrel, what you need to do is you need to pull out your cleaning rod and you have to pound that bullet out of the barrel. Once you have done that, you have to put a series of lapping rounds through the barrel. But there's some problems with lapping. Lapping rounds are only going to smooth out the barrel. It's not going to bring the lands and grooves back. If you
Can
intend
you
to fire,
just like dig out all the particulate?
no. Once a barrel has been fouled that bad, there is no point in trying to bring it back. You might as well buy a brand new barrel because you're going to spend at least the same amount trying to bring that original barrel back.
Barrel's gone.
So I'm just curious, what would happen were you to fire a second round after the first round had not exited the barrel?
You will definitely over pressurize your chamber and shit will explode.
Have you ever seen what happens when around a 300 blackout makes it into a 5.56 mag?
I have not. Goes kaboom.
It's very much not fun and not safe.
Have you ever seen what happens when you put a 5.56 in a 2.23?
Nope.
Same shit.
I imagine that would be the case, seeing as it would be a bit too spicy.
Yeah, see, the 5.56 and the 2.23 are practically the same round. The difference is the 5.56 has a higher bottleneck for more pressure.
Doesn't it also have a grain of powder more?
Yeah, one or two.
Yeah, single grain of powder.
And 5.56 chambers are supposed to be pressurized up to 60,000 psi, whereas 2.23 doesn't come anywhere near that.
Yeah.
So if you just so happen to fire a 5.56 out of a 2.23 chamber, you are screwed. Now it can go the other way. You can fire 2.23 out of a 5.56 chamber all fucking day.
I ended up having issues with shooting 2.23 out of 5.56, but that's probably more of just
that's a gas block issue.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is past 7 o'clock or past 1 a.m. for Molly.
8
past
EST.
8 for people on the Eastern time zone. So at that point, given the fact that we have been talking about some pretty spicy shit, especially when it comes to Chicago, I want to lead off with some spiciness. So let's go ahead and roll out, ending this. We'll start with our resident southern redneck, Stoner. Please say goodnight, Stoner.
Good night.
Please say hi to Z for everyone. And then, of course, we are going to move to our resident Serbian from the former Soviet state of Serbia, Molly. Say goodnight, Molly.
Good night, Maui Sweetwell.
And then we are going to move to the one person that does not exist. She was not here at all tonight, even though she was. And, you know, she lives in the state that doesn't exist. Luna. Say goodnight, Luna.
Coming from the state of nothingness that produces high points, parts kit when. Bye.
And then to finish it off, our resident of Kanakistan, the Soviet state with some of the most horrendous war crimes, the crimes that should have been committed. Dale, please say goodnight, Dale.
Good night, everyone. Also,
didn't know
fuck
you
the
did this.
ATF.
Fuck the ATF. We will see you all next weekend. Good night.